Hey, what's going on, guys? I'm Chris, and this is Regular Guy Training. I'm out here, and I'm doing my thing, and I'm getting some work in and that kind of stuff, and I figured, you know what, I might as well start this up, because people have been asking me to do something similar for a while. You guys read the title? This is a little series that we're going to start up, right? You know, just stupid things that people say to me, or in general, and this is between, like, concealed carry classes, this is, you know, on the internet forums, YouTube comment sections, whatever, right? And the cool thing about this whole little series here is that you guys get to influence it. If you guys want to list or throw down a particular subject that you would like me and possibly guests that would come out and do this kind of talk with me as we sit here and make fun of idiots, you guys can leave a comment in the comment section below and let us know the subject you want us to talk about on this little series. So in episode 1, we're gonna talk about something that people constantly do, especially on like internet forums. For those of you that don't know, I have a Facebook page, link for that in the description below, and it's the fan page to the YouTube channel, right? So every once in a while, especially when you have gatherings of thousands of dudes that come together and that kind of stuff, every once in a while, you have some cancer, and that's okay. Now, typically speaking, as far as this group goes, we have equipment that we do not approve of, like, at all. That has proven itself to be garbage, and anybody that wholesale advocates the shit and, you know, more or less doesn't listen to the bajillions of dudes that have actually come out and actually trained and did what they were supposed to do with their guns. If they just keep on pushing it, if they're the kind of guys that just have been made up in their mind and they start trying to spread that to especially brand new people, we get rid of them because it's a self-defense oriented page and that kind of stuff. So here's the deal. As far as all of this is concerned, right, it usually starts with like a question, right? And the question usually, because they've read like the group rules and that kind of stuff, is, okay, so I see that XDMs, for instance, right, or Serpa holsters, or the RAS-47 is part of the if you push this, we will ban you, like, list, right? Why is that? It's a good question, and people start actually answering the question. Every once in a while, people start, you know, posting memes and that kind of stuff when that dude posts a question, like, oh, they finna drag you. But, like, most of the time it's a question, and people start answering their question. A lot of times I'll get tagged in it, and I'll jump in, and I'll type a little freaking thing and send it up. Other guys that have helped me teach before, or guys that have taken a billion classes either with me or other people, will go in and they'll chime in with, you know, their experiences, what they've individually seen, and that kind of stuff, right? So amidst all this actual good conversation, when we're sitting here talking about a particular subject, every once in a while, you get that guy that comes out and he says, oh, well, I have like 42,000 fucking XDs. I bought everything they've ever made. I've been using them for like 25 years. And each one of them has about 85,000 rounds on them. You know, and a literal example of this is the last time I saw it was, you know, I have an XD in 9. I have the XDM in 940 and 45, and the one that's in 9 is the 525, or their competition length gun. And I've got 75 rounds on them each, and they all work. No. Typically speaking, when a bunch of people start talking about how shit a product is, and then you have a guy that comes out and says, I have a gun in each of these calibers, and I've shot 75,000 rounds through them, and I've never changed any parts in them. That's fictional. That has never happened. I'm sure that somewhere, someplace, somebody's bought a 9, a 40, and a 45 in Glock, right, or something like that. And he's gone to a pretty retarded round count with all three, and he hasn't changed any parts in all three, and they still work. I'm sure that exists someplace, but it never exists in these conversations, ever. And the reason being is that anybody that has shot that goddamn much with those handguns, or with a handgun in general, first of all, they have skills to match. Second, they have enough experience to recognize that these guns are pretty shit. Okay. And here's why, right? Just as a for instance, if you get, for instance, I do have a Gen 4 Glock 19 with 74,000 rounds on it, and I've changed a bunch of parts on this thing. I've overhauled the internals twice. And the reason why I have is because shit breaks. Okay? It breaks. You're asking a recoil-operated handgun to cycle under sub-explosions 74,000 times. You're gonna break shit. And even when you replace those parts, those new parts going into that old frame and slide and that kind of stuff, sometimes they jive a little goofy. And sometimes you're gonna get stoppages that have no real explanation, and everything checks out as far as your parts checks and that kind of stuff, and then you never see it again, right? And that wasn't an ammo-related issue. It was absolutely a mechanical issue, but it never happens again, right? But that's because you have new parts in an old frame and slide, and sometimes they're going to jive together a little fucking weird. Okay, it's never really 100% anymore, and you start getting some weird shit going on with your gun once you get past like 50,000 rounds with a typical modern auto-loading handgun. You start getting little weird issues every once in a while, and it seems to not really want to eject consistently anymore. Like, it just starts to fan for whatever reason. It'll stay a little consistent, and then it just does some wild shit, and then it comes back to consistent. And that's just because the parts themselves are starting to have tolerance issues. Okay, you're starting to reach the upper limit of the thing's ability to be mechanical accurate. Okay, so to say that you've never replaced those parts in inferior design, and I will say this without any pause, the XDM is an inferior design at every level, right? The odds of this happening are ridiculous. Never mind the fact that 40 caliber itself, most auto loading 40s started with 9mm frames. Okay, there are some that were dedicated as legit 40 caliber handguns, and then they go to other calibers. But typically they're German, and typically they have their own little issues here and there too. But that's not the point. The point is that, like, you try that with some shit like an XD, which an XD in 40 started on a 9mm frame, it's going to eat itself. It's going to eat itself. Around about 8,000 to 10,000 rounds, you're going to have very serious problems. And I've seen really important shit separate from XDs and 40. Okay, Glocks aren't exempt either, although they are significantly tougher. They have stuff breaking them too after a little while, you know. So no, never happened, and we know it never happened once more, you know. And the funny thing is that, like, these people always seem to believe that dudes haven't actually seen this kind of shit before. So for instance, right, I'll do a more egregious example. The Century built RAS 47 is made out of cardboard, and the gun just does not last very long at all. I have never heard of an example going past 5,000 rounds, and the guns that do actually get to 5,000 rounds are falling all the way apart, failing no-go gauge tests and go gauge tests and shit like that. Okay, like, just like the bolts are mush, the receivers are coming apart in them. They're just not, they're just not doing very well if they get to 5,000 rounds. Now, the funny thing about this too is that 4 have come through our little class structure, right? And each one of these went through a 4-day class set, or we'll try to. And here's the thing on this: in a 4-day class set, we shoot about 700 rounds a day. That's fairly typical. So at the end of 4 days, you're really close to 2,800. Okay, on the 4 days. Now, over the course of these 4 days, there's 2 night shoots. So there's 2 days that you are shooting all day long. Okay, and here's the deal. What's additionally ridiculous about this is that day 3, all 4 of these guns before lunch were dead. Okay, not like, oh, they're not ejecting good or what. No, dead. Like dead, or if we keep going, we're going to hurt somebody because cases are bulging. We have serious headspace issues. Rivets are running out of place. Important ones. You know, shit like that. You know, and then you look at your bolt, and then you look at the receiver itself, and it's just chewed to shit. You know, so then when you sit there and you hear guys go, oh, well, I put the thing through 5,000 punishing rounds, and then you see them open up the fucking receiver, and the hammer isn't even polished on an AK, which I don't care who made it. For some reason, if you make a trigger for an AK, you do a little bit of dry fire practice for like an hour, and that fucking hammer is lost most of its paint. Okay? So, no fucking way that didn't happen. If you actually shot what you told me you shot. Never mind the fact that it's like, dude, the metallurgy just isn't there. The metallurgy just isn't there. If you don't heat treat properly, I don't care how thick your receiver is, it's not going to make it. You know, same thing for like Zastava style fucking, like for instance, PAPs, right? It's been very well known by people that fuck around with AKs, like actually fuck around with AKs, including builders and that kind of stuff, that the Serbians were contracted by Century to make rifles. The Serbians wanted their rifle to be at a certain price point. So how do you get to that certain price point? Well, you make the receivers out of cardboard. And then you thicken them up so that they last just a little bit longer before they fall all the way apart. That's just how it goes. And no, this didn't change at all when Zastava went over to their own thing. A lot of you may know that I have been testing a Z-PAP for a little while now. We're running it until it dies. That took a break for a little while because the ammo crunch got fucking ridiculous. I have classes to teach and I have to stay good. So that took a break. That is a few thousand rounds into its testing, and it's not fucking going well. Okay, there's a reason why if Rifle Dynamics gets a hold of a PAP and they make one for you, there's a reason why it's $1 billion, and it's because they have to replace the entire receiver on it because what comes from the Serbians is trash. Okay, so when guys say that they have 15,000 rounds on a fucking PAP, that doesn't exist. Unless it's a Rifle Dynamics rifle. Then that actually does make sense. Okay? But, no, it doesn't exist. There's a bajillion examples of rivets walking, trigger pins eggshelling, and that kind of shit. So when you sit there and these people are just kind of like, oh, well, my example has got... No, it hasn't. No, it never has. It never has because we know how they're made. We know how they're made. You can't dress it up and make me think it's a better rifle. You know. And that's just a couple examples out of the so many that exist, right? And here's the other thing, right? And this gets pretty close to like the whole just as good crowd and that kind of thing. These guys are constantly talking about how, oh, why would I spend this kind of money on like a Glock, which really isn't even that much goddamn money. It really is. Okay, have some discipline for once. Holy fuck. If you want to put a dot on it, just save your money. This really isn't hard. Okay, I have never been wealthy in my entire fucking life. Okay, but I'm not poor. And the reason why I'm not poor is because I'm not stupid. Stop being stupid and you can afford an RMR. Anyway, point is that these guys will sit there and they'll talk about, you know, the warranties and all this other shit, right? And then they'll talk about how, oh, well, I went through one class one time that was listed for 1,000 rounds, so I'm going to say it was 1,000 rounds, even though the class I went to was trash. There was a fucking 30 people in it, and we shot like 400 rounds. But you're going to say I shot 1,000 rounds in this class. But it made it. And it made it. Right? Somehow it made it. So, cool. You made it through that one class one time, and it didn't shoot a whole lot while you were there. Now you're trying to tell other people that this fucking Taurus or whatever piece of shit it is, you know, that's just as good as a Glock. What you don't understand is, and better yet, typically speaking, they'll go to Google, straight to imright.com, and they'll pull up examples of Glocks that were made on Monday at 8 in the morning or Friday at fucking 4:30 to 5, and those guns are broken, they're dead or whatever, right? And they're sitting there and they're just kind of saying, oh, well, fucking, there you go. That's it. Glocks aren't even really that good. Everything breaks. Yeah, you dumb shit. We know that guns break. We know guns break. We know people make mistakes. We know that during the manufacturing process of a human-made machine that people just suck sometimes. As professional as you could possibly be, everyone that's ever been a master of their craft has done something fucking stupid and broken something. Okay? And that's cool. It does happen. But realistically speaking, the point they never seem to get is, dude, if you roll the dice with Taurus, chances of you fucking getting something that's terrible is way higher than if you roll the dice with like a Glock or an HK or a fucking SIG, as much as I kind of don't like them. Not for functional issues most of the time. Friggin' a CZ, which is gonna work great out of the box, and then you get to say that you're a part of a master race or some shit, whatever. Or the cheap imitation of a Glock that is an M&P. Fuck you guys. Point is, though, is that, like, if you roll the dice with one of those guys, a gun is likely to work, and it's likely to work really well. Chances also exist that what you just picked up, even though it's got this cool name and form factor, that it's shit, right? But those chances are remote compared to whether or not you're going to get a gun that works, right? And if you buy a Kel-Tec RFB, your chances of getting a piece of shit are really high. They're really high, especially if you look at how things are constructed. Especially, it's a fucking rifle receiver held together by screws. I don't get it. Point is that, look, you spend the extra money for a better roll of the dice. That's the point. You dumbass. And these people are always coming out the woodwork. They don't shoot. They have no skills. Let's just call it what it is. They don't shoot, they have no skills, and they went to a class one time 10 years ago. Maybe. Or they just didn't, and they go and fuck around and shoot dirt and shit in the backyard, which, as fun as that is, it's not the same. And they try to sit there and say that their XD in their Serpa holster is the shit. And no, it's not. So you're one, and I promise you, there is a one example that does work, okay? I personally know someone that currently owns a 9mm XDM in 5.25. This is the one I've ever heard of that has gone past 20,000 rounds. He's gotten to 40. He's changed a bunch of parts in it, and he's changed 1 million magazines for it. But for some reason, he just has an unreasonable attachment to this, and he'll admit it. But it's kept going after 40,000 rounds. This is the one example, one time, of the hundreds I've seen absolutely die. Okay? And I've only been seriously training for a little over a decade. Guys that have been doing this way longer have seen way more bullshit attached to these guns. And I've seen some funky crap happen to XDs, as a for instance, right? Most of the time, your magazines are just trash, and that's why they don't work good. Right? But I've seen very important things like fucking chunks of metal that are holding your slide onto your frame separating, or slides cracking, or the grip safety pinning itself halfway, locking the gun up, shit like that. I've seen a lot of horrendous crap, and that's why I haven't bought an XD. Ever. Okay? It's shit like that that's important. Because for every one example that does exist of that gun actually being made well, its reputation is what it is because they built it themselves. Whatever that reputation is, that manufacturer has built that rep themselves. Okay? Even guys that have seen 10 million M9s in military service fucking die, and they look at them kind of weird because they're like, I've seen these fuck up pretty hard. They also know that 0 parts have been changed in those Berettas. And they know that if they go just pick one up, and every single time they'll tell you the same thing. Yeah, I know, if I just went and bought one, it would probably work just fine. But I've seen a lot of them fucking break, and blah, blah, blah. Simple shit like that. You know what I mean? And they admit how they feel has nothing to do with Beretta, because they know that probably the simple fact that they sort of work anyway is because they're really good handgun. You see what I'm saying here? And again, this is just for us to make fun of fucking people, on the internet and that kind of stuff, and just sit there and be like, you're retarded. But I love people that do this because I love just watching just a large group of people just fuck with them, and it's the best. So, look, I hope you guys enjoyed this. I'm probably going to bring guests into this before too terribly long. And again, in the comment section, if you want to leave a comment in the comment section and be all like, oh, do a thing on this, I'll look at it, I'll read it, I'll consider it, and if it's good, I'll do it. So, you guys get to steer this series. This wind is fucking crazy. If you guys want to come out and train with us, you absolutely can. We have stuff listed, for instance, in May, this coming May, we're doing a vehicle class. We're going down to Florida. That's on the schedule. We're getting ready to go to a bunch of other places. So keep your eyes peeled for that kind of stuff, because as October approaches, okay, that's the start of my new fiscal year. So once I have a mill schedule, I'll start throwing out classes for you guys to see, which will be way easier for everybody. And then we'll just kind of go from there. It's getting worse as I'm wrapping up. If you guys want to support us on Patreon, you absolutely can. If you want to get something out of it, $41 a month gets you as much training as you want with us as you want. Aside of vehicle classes, because of material cost and that kind of stuff, we still have to charge full price for those. But if you want to sign up for $41 a month and then come out and train with us as much as you want so that we can help develop you, you absolutely can do that. Or if you just want to throw us a couple of bucks so that we can do what it is that we got to do and keep going, especially in the aftermath of the fucking election infection. And now we're dealing with massive incompetence. Point is, though, is that as we go, we appreciate the support that you guys have handed out to us. It's been stunning. And it continues to be absolutely stunning. So we appreciate that. If you guys want to check out the Facebook page and laugh at dummies when they show up every once in a while, you absolutely can. And from there, I think I'm done. So remember, guys, Regular Guys Firearm is the last defense against tyranny. Be easy.